Right, are we live? Hey everybody, Real Estate Ninja here. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about NYCB Bank, actually the whole banking sector, a story that is frontline headline news on CNBC right now. It's entitled "Banks Are in Limbo Without a Crucial Lifeline. Here's where cracks may appear next." Very important to realize that the banking crisis is nowhere near from over. It has actually just begun, and people have already started to forget what happened in 2023. But I want to remind you, in 2005, mid 2005, Ben Bernanke was in front of the nation on CNBC telling Maria Bartiromo that he did not believe there was a problem. They stemmed the tide of the mortgage-backed securities crisis. They fixed it, and there's no way that real estate could fall across the country at the same time. He said that. Now he makes millions of dollars traveling around touting his book. It should be entitled, "I Was Completely Wrong." Of course, it's not. And most people don't remember what happens 7 years, 10 years ago. But we're having people already forget what happened 1 year ago. Now, remember, the banks no longer have to hold, they are now required to hold back reserves. When you have a deposit, you put in $1, they need to hold back like 3 cents. I know that sounds crazy, but all of the biggest banks in the nation went to Congress and said, if you make us do this, go back to this, we're not going to be able to compete with international banks. That's how bad and how weak this system is. Let me read a comment actually that I got from someone. And this kind of stuff blows me away. I won't share the name, but please let me read it and think about where we're at as a society, or when we try and teach people how things work and how to do things. Let me see, how did I do it? I grabbed it from a different phone. Sorry, the phone I'm recording with. What it was, the person said that they were very concerned with the state of the banking industry, that they had a friend that last year had a big startup and lost a lot of money because of the banking downturn. Wasn't able to get funds, acquire the funds to do it. The person said, I have $850,000 in my bank, and with the FDIC insurance only covering $250,000 for a person by themselves, what am I to do? Now, I've got to be honest, and I'm not trying to be mean. It blows my mind when someone knows how much they got in their bank, they know what the FDIC limit is, and they don't simply take that money and go, I'm going to separate it between, 3 or 4 banks. Why wouldn't I? Different banks. To me, that's the cheapest insurance you could have. But here's the thing. Last year, the FDIC walked into Silicon Valley Bank. They stated, for the record, 80% of these accounts aren't even insurable. But don't worry, we're going to insure them. That's exactly what happened in 2005, 2007. They started bailing out some banks until the point of 2008. They say, we're done, we're tapped. Some bank has got to go down. And they chose Lehman Brothers. That's exactly what is happening right now. History is repeating itself, but it's way worse this time. And people just simply won't go, yeah, I get it, there's a limit. I'm just going to separate my money, right? And the reason why they don't is because of every emergency call I ever went on in my entire career, the theme was the same. I'm shocked this is happening to me. I never thought my house would be the one that burns down. So again, this is headline news, and they're warning you of what's coming in the banking industry. Check this out. It says the forces that consumed 3 regional lenders in March of 2023 have left hundreds of smaller banks wounded as merger activity, a key potential lifeline, has slowed to a trickle. Right now, especially, let me stop before. I haven't read this story yet. NYCB, the reason why it's in the news and why it's having so much trouble is because when it acquired a hurting bank, it brought its asset base higher. And the higher you go, the bigger you get in the banking world, you hit these key levels and there's tighter regulation on your bank. They weren't ready for this. And you'd think, you're like, what are these banks doing? Shouldn't they know this kind of stuff? Well, the bigger a bank gets, the more red tape there is, the more people, the more opinions. You all get it if you work for a big company. So they go to this next level and they think, hey, look at that. We just bought all these assets for pennies on the dollar, which ironically took them down because the rules that they're governed by now got stricter, and those assets weren't performing the way they wanted to. So now here we are. We've got a failing bank. It says, as the memory of last year's regional banking crisis begins to fade, it's easy to believe the industry is in the clear, but the high interest rates that caused the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and its peers in 2023 are still at play. After hiking rates 11 times through July, the Federal Reserve has yet to start cutting its benchmark. Let me bring up another point that nobody's really talking about. I want to remind everyone, as a matter of fact, can you please remind me which bank went down first and why it went down? The very, very beginning. I'm going to let you guys start answering right now. And this is very important because we're at a moment where a certain asset class is hitting all-time highs, right? And there's a frenzy of money moving into it, especially in the ETF market, right? Is anyone going to get it? It's not SVB. It's a bank that had nothing to do with commercial loans. Come on now, everyone's got to remember. This is Silvergate La Jolla. Silvergate La Jolla had a problem because of FTX. FTX had a problem because of the Bitcoin price dump, right? And when something crashes in price, all of a sudden, it's like who's swimming naked when the water comes out, right? The water being high prices in a certain asset class. Everybody's making money in mortgage-backed securities in 2004, and then all of a sudden that collapses, right? We're going to see who's swimming naked, who's got more derivatives attached to it, more debt attached to it. Well, so when Bitcoin price crashed, FTX was exposed. Silvergate La Jolla had a lot invested in there. And then Silvergate led to another bank, which ultimately led to Silicon Valley Bank. This is the point that I want to make. Right now, you have Bitcoin an all-time high. And it's gonna go a lot higher, honestly. That's not financial advice, but I'm telling you, there's gonna be a lot of mania and hype, especially due to this ETF, this money that's flowing in, and the FOMO is gonna get even more crazy. That's why I took a big chunk of my money and invested it in December and added to my position in crypto. So when we see a downturn in the Bitcoin price, but it is gonna turn down, I believe you're going to see, I'm not going to give you price predictions, but I've actually given them before. When we were at like 20,000, I said, next level is 100. It's going to go up above that probably. And then it'll come down to 40. I know it sounds crazy. Then it'll go to 250, but we're talking like the span of 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, decades, right? These cycles are just really long time frames. But eventually it'll end up $1 million plus Bitcoin, right? But these massive swings over years. Well, every time that price comes down, the ones that were highly leveraged, because it takes a long time for the price of something to go up, right? Like Bitcoin. I mean, it seems like overnight for a lot of people, but a lot of people have been waiting for this for years and years and years. I remember when I bought my first Bitcoin, and I know, and trust me, the Bitcoin story ties into this banking situation. I told my wife when we bought, I told her the cycle. We did the charts, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna go here. 10,000 people are gonna lose their minds. It's gonna back off. It's gonna go up to 50,000 people are gonna lose their minds. It's gonna back off. Then it's gonna go to 100 people are really gonna lose their minds. And I told her then we had 4 more cycles that were gonna take us up to 3 more cycles that'll take us up to $1 million per Bitcoin. And then we've got to trade inside and out of that. Well, those cycles, going from 500 to 10,000 took like, what was it, a year? Then it came down. I mean, just a little bit, went up to the 17,500, 18,000 range, and it came down to 3,000, and it sat there. It was a multi-year run up to where we're at now, right? 3 years, something like that. People forget what it was like during the downtime. All they care about is the uptime, just like right before the crash of 29. People were out dancing, drinking champagne, spilling it all over the ground, and throwing dishes out the windows. They were partying like rock stars. They had already forgotten about the Depression of 1920. So this is what is happening right now in the banking sector. Banking industry is collapsing. And I believe it comes to a real head right after the election based on the determination of who the next president's going to be, who's going to be running the White House. So I hope that ties in. If that makes sense, type 1. If it doesn't, type 2. I'll try and figure out some more different analogies. Now, it says here, But the high interest rates that caused the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and its peers in 2023 are still in play. And there's even talk about it going higher. Okay. After hiking rates 11 times through July, the Federal Reserve has yet to start cutting its benchmark. As a result, hundreds of billions of dollars of unrealized losses on low interest bonds and loans remain buried on banks' balance sheets. That, combined with potential losses in commercial real estate, leaves swaths of the industry vulnerable. All right, let me explain something else. People just don't understand. This is going to get nutty. When we're in a moment right now where the Fed still has the lying numbers, right? The CPI, where they tell you it's this, but you really know it's this because we all go to the grocery store, go to the gas pump. We're seeing our insurance rates skyrocketing, right? And the government's like, well, we take all that crap that you really need out and we just lie to you. We make you feel good, right? It doesn't really feel good. There's nothing like the feeling of getting lied. So here's the thing. Paul Volcker spiked rates, but he didn't really spike rates. We look at what Paul Volcker did and bringing rates to what, 17, 18%. And he is hailed as a hero. Really, you look at rates and they go, well, they sat around 9 to 11% back then. That wasn't, what is that, maybe a doubling, if that? What the Federal Reserve has done by taking rates from 0 to 5 is way worse than what happened back then. But here's the problem. The Federal Reserve still doesn't have their numbers, their lying numbers, at that 2% inflation rate. So they can do this slow, drawn out, death of the economy, or they can, get a sack and really do something and raise those rates. And we're talking, bring them up a full point, maybe even 2, and just crush this thing right now. Here's the thing though, with technology or social media, their plan's already outed. It was so much easier to control a narrative through newspaper and TV back in the late 70s, early 80s than it is now. Because you got some dork with a brohawk, or other people that are saying, oh no, don't you look back here in history and see, look, we can access all these charts and all this data and show you history and what happens. The Fed's like, crap, we got to compete with social media. So they can try and hold it back as much as they want, but the knowledge that you have, that I have, has increased exponentially compared to someone our age back in 1979 or 1980 when it comes to economics. So we can make much better informed decisions. Now, does the public make really good informed decisions? Just curious. Let's take a poll. Type 3 if you think the public is generally smarter and they make better decisions than those of their peers back in the early 80s. Type 3. Type 4 if you think, no, they're probably dumber because they're staring at TikTok all day. Point being is this. The more information that we have out there, the less it's actually accessed, because it almost becomes like an overload in our system. And that's what's happening right now with this banking crisis. There's so much information. How many of you have friends that just go, I don't want to hear it. It's too stressful. You're like, are you crazy? Those are the people that are going to lose their home. Because as the banks crash, right now, this story is telling you that those banks are less likely to do mergers because they're scared to death of what happened with NYCB Bank. And they're going, I don't want to merge. I don't want to get any bigger. I don't want any more regulators staring at us, right? That's what the CEO's thinking, the CFO, they're like, the heck with that. So it's really important to realize where this is at. So then as the crunch happens with banks are going to go, you know what? I'm not really at liberty to loan a ton of money out. The auto industry is collapsing. These are now not appreciating assets, which have never happened in history. And again, okay, think about this. There was never a time in history where cars went up in value unless you're buying the fine collector car and other cars of its likes were catching on fire, crashing, meaning yours was becoming more rare. This has never happened where, cars are just going to inflate. This is nutty, right? What we just experienced. Well, now that's turned. Cars are going down in value and they're being turned in, they're being repoed right under our eyes. The media is not picking up on it. You'll have that data come out by June, the car apocalypse. People can't pay those $1,000 payments, right? Well, banks are going, we're not going to loan on those. And then they start going, well, what else should we not be loaning on? We want just AAA credit. And pretty soon, about the next year and a half, you're going to find out that banks, again, were lying about the creditworthiness of these borrowers buying cars, buying homes, all this stuff, and they're being packaged up and sold off to a pension fund, identical to what happened in 2005. Get ready. Put your seatbelt on. This is not the time to be diving into the debt markets. I'm waiting for the bond market to implode, and I'm going to be buying bonds between 15 and 20%. And then, because I have my money set aside, we'll be making those rates. And when the Fed is in a position to be able to lower rates to save face, because remember, if they lower rates, there's going to be mad speculation again in the markets because everyone's like, oh, they can just control this forever. No, they actually can't. That's not how it works. If they lower rates, people speculate, it causes inflation. If we have a hyperinflation, yeah, you could print it all day long. Tell that, ask someone from Zimbabwe how that works, or Argentina, or Turkey, or even Germany around the turn of the century. That's not how it works. Oh, they could just manipulate it forever. If you tell me that, and you really believe that, what it means is you have this much of an idea of what's happened in the past. Start thinking and get your perspective a little bit wider. Once you get there, you'll go, oh crap, our bond market is in serious trouble. And very wealthy people agree with me. I joke around and laugh and stuff and try and use humor. And I get pretty fired up and emotional too, right? I got totally both ends of the spectrum. What I'm saying right now is 100% how it works. And it's not because I'm some brainiac. I've just read a bunch of books and really focused on economic history. And our empire is crashing. The question is, what are you going to do about it? You going to sit around, watch it happen, put your head in the sand? Or are you going to go out and crush it and make the most of it? The banks are doing it. Why don't you? Hope you got something out of this. The Real Estate Ninja is out.